The Norman divisor is a really powerful way of making your reports give you the type of information that you might need for some investigation. What's interesting is the Norman divisor here is set at 1,000, but what I'm going to show you is that if you add a 0 to it, the precision you get in your norming increases. But let's take a look at what norming is real quickly. Let's get 2 reports on this pienso que, I believe that. And let's get a count by city, that's ciudad, and by gender, that's sexo. And let's have a look. Let's get that report. And we can see here's the breakdown by city. Buenos Aires, Caracas, that's Mexico City, Madrid, there's Sevilla, Gran Canary Islands. And then if we go look at gender, sexo, we've got hombre, we've got man, and we've got women. And note, for instance, that it tells you how many instances came up. There were 4 that came up. In fact, we could read this a lot more easily if I were to just copy it. And of course, I want to verify that I had selected report in tab format. I did. I'm going to do that again just in case. Make sure that the report in tab format is selected. And I'm going to get that data. And I'm going to copy it. And then I'm going to paste it into Excel so that I can get a little better sense of what the data is saying to me. And I can see here that it says how many instances of pienso que was found by city, and here by gender. But it tells me how many words were produced by city, and of course here how many words were produced in the sample by gender. And then here is my norming data. And what that says is this. You'll see that you have 1,000 right there, normed to 1,000. And what that means is in Buenos Aires, they will say pienso que 2 times for every 1,000 words. Whereas in Gran Canaria, they will say it 1 time per 1,000 words. Here, under gender, we have zeros. And the problem there is that norming it by 1,000 words, meaning norming these counts per 1,000 words, doesn't provide any useful number. So let's examine how we can make that a little more precise. Let's have a little review of how norming works. Let's say our norming multiplier was 1,000. Well, if I did a particular search and I came up with 12 matches in the corpus, but that particular match via that particular header or classification, there were 12 instances in 4,376 words. What that ends up meaning then is if my norming divisor is 1,000, I take 12 divided by 4,376 and then I multiply it by 1,000, and that gives me a round number of 3. However, if I were to use 100,000 as my norming multiplier, then I would get a little more precision. If you think about it, it would give me 274 instances of that match per 100,000 words. It's still a round number, but I'm able to see that it's not really 3 per 1,000 words, but rather 274 per 100,000 words. And the math is pretty simple. You take 12 divided by 4,376 and then multiply it by 100,000. So what you get is greater precision with a higher norming multiplier. Let's see how this works in a real example. I have my norming multiplier here, and I'm going to change it from 1,000 to 100,000. Let me hit Get Reports, making sure that I have report and tab format selected because I'm going to take it over to Excel to get a better view of it. And there's my data. As you can see that it's been normed now to 100,000 words. I copied it. I take it over to Excel, put in a different sheet so that I can compare the two results that I got. And if you compare them, this is the data for the norm to 1,000. This data doesn't change at all. We got 4, 4, 3, 18, 6, and 1. Here we have our 8 and 28 via gender. And we have the same data over here, 8 and 28 by gender. Same number of words. But whereas here we said it looks like in Buenos Aires they use 2, I think that's, right, pienso que per 1,000 words. Whereas in the Gran Canaria, they use it 1 per 1,000 words. We can go over here with this higher norming divisor of 100,000 and see that the difference between Buenos Aires and Gran Canaria is actually not double as these data implied. Here was 2 per 1,000 and then 1 per 1,000. But here we find out that it's 157 per 100,000 versus 91 per 100,000. So that's a change in the ratio of 2 to 1 to 3 to 2, basically. And going back and looking at the gender breakdown, hombre is man, mujer is women. When it was normed to 1,000, we really weren't getting any sort of discernible difference based on that norming. And that was because there were so few instances and we had a lot of words produced by both groups. But if we use the higher Norman divisor, we see that, at least in this data, the women produced 34 of the I think that's per 100,000 words versus the men that produced 11 per the 100,000 words. So we get a little more precision in that count. But the Norman divisor is completely arbitrary. The higher the more zeros you put there, the larger the scale, but the more precision you'll get. It works just the opposite that decimal points work.